1924. Well, her son, Oscar, he's married with 2 daughters of his own. He's all of a sudden, he's successful, but he's not that successful. She said at one point it took on average, this is in the 19-teens, about $1,000 a day to run this house. A day, and that's in those terms. So you can probably at least double that now. So he's got this big house. Well, he's big into the Iowa Masons, and at the time they're looking for a nursing home facility. For their members and their members' families. So he wants all of them to come in and do this. So he knows, well, there's a need for it, and I got this big house, so we contacted the head of the Iowa Masons, and he said, hey, why don't you guys come out and take a tour? They loved the house. The house was worth well over $100,000. He gave it to him for 10. Just a song. Now I'm sure part of that was generosity, and part of it was to get out from under these gigantic houses. So he gives it to them, and in 1925, it becomes the Iowa Masonic Home. And right away, they have the mansion. Oscar's already moved out to LA. He would come back and visit, but he moved out to LA. It becomes the Iowa Masonic Home. The first thing they do is build a 70-room or 70-bed addition off the side of the original mansion. And then things build up, and they take over that property from 1925 on forward. So the mansion is forgotten. It blends right in. The addition doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. It's not like it's a totally different architectural style. No, they did it in the same new style Spanish revival style as the rest of the mansion. So it just looks like this big sweeping building. And then all people saw was Iowa Masonic, and over the years, it's forgotten. Nobody knew. A lot of people didn't remember that it was a mansion. Well, the cool thing about it was that the mansion part remained executive offices for Iowa Masonic, for the Iowa Masonic Home, rather. They put in a couple extra walls here and there. They basically divided a couple rooms. I think the billiards room at the end of the hall, or at the end of the house. But beyond that, it was original from 1924. It was absolutely untouched. The furniture, some of the furniture is still original, a lot of it's not, it was donated later, but still, I mean, it's untouched. And so you have all of this stuff that's modernized and updated and everything, and then you walk through a door, they wrapped the facility around the mansion, so when you walk into a building, not unlike this. And there's a little desk, and you come up, you talk to somebody, there's a door right behind you, you walk through the door, and you step back about 70 years. And you walk back through time. They updated the electric, they updated the plumbing, and that was about it. Now maybe that's part of the reason why some people started having experiences in the house. There was a story. One person was working there late at night. Now, the executive office, the upstairs, was completely untouched. They just kind of winterized that. There were 4 bathrooms upstairs with big bathtubs and stuff like that. And they winterized that, shut it all up, and it stayed there, untouched. Then they came downstairs, and that's where the offices were at. So you're talking 4 or 5 people down there, max, in these. The dining room was one person's office, and the dining room, if you take from that door there and block it off, that's about the size of their dining room. It is absolutely huge. This was a house designed to impress and show off William Bettendorf's wealth. Somebody's working there late one night. They're by themselves, and there was one other person in another office. And they're sitting there typing away, and everything's quiet, kind of like it is now. And they hear somebody call their name. Joe! Yeah! Nothing. Okay, I just got busy. They go back, typing, doing their paperwork, whatever they're doing. A little time passes, and then, Joe! Yeah, I'm in here. Nothing. And so finally, okay, what do they need? So they get up, and they go out, and they're looking, and like, yeah, I'm over here. Where you at? Nobody in this office. Come around here, looking in this big empty foyer right next to the staircase. There's nobody there. It's dark. Okay, go over the office here. There's nobody there. Go over the office here. Nobody there. Well, what is going on? So they come back around over here, and they look in office there. And about then, the door to the outside opens up, and their coworker walks in. It's like, oh, Sam, how you doing? What'd you need? What do you mean, what I need? Well, you were calling for me just now. No, I wasn't. I was out here the entire time. Right when we got here, I did a couple things in my office. I've been gone this entire time. I've been down the hall. Who was calling her name? No clue. Another time, there was an individual who was in there. He was in the entire mansion by himself. Everybody had gone home. He was a maintenance guy. I think he was a maintenance guy. It doesn't matter. He was a worker there. And he comes out, and there's these, now this sits right up on the river bluff, so it's got this gorgeous view. It was a nice day out, so there's this big French door, so he opens him up, and he's standing there, he's just kind of leaning in the door, maybe smoking a cigarette, whatever he's doing, as one does. And he's standing there, and he's, just kind of enjoying the night, and then all of a sudden, someone pushes him from behind. And he turns around and says, what the? There's nobody there. Absolutely nothing. No sound. No running footsteps away. The door he came through is still closed. And he knows he's in the mansion by himself. Well, he didn't want to find out who pushed him. He was done. He left, and he didn't go back that night. There were other stories too. Things kept happening. Things would move. There'd be weird voices. There'd be weird sounds. All kinds of things. Well, people started looking into the history a little bit because they're like, what is going on? So, as it turns out, you had William Bettendorf, who never lived in the house. Okay, there's a possible suspect. There's Elizabeth Stady, who was really her house the entire time. In all likelihood, in all honesty, it should be named the Stady Mansion. She's not there, okay, maybe it's her. And then there was another, there was Oscar, the son. Oscar moved to LA. He's very successful. He even went all Hollywood. He became a producer in a movie company for a while. Because you're Hollywood, you gotta do that, State law. So he goes out, and he's at Sunday dinner one day. This is probably about 10 years later, so early 1930s. And he's there, everybody's happy. He's there with his daughter and his wife and his mother-in-law, and all of a sudden his hand starts shaking. And he can't stop it. And keeps going, and keeps going, and keeps going. And pretty soon he just freaks out and he runs up the stairs. And everybody's like, what is going on? No rhyme, no reason, nothing leading up to this. Absolutely nothing. And so they come up and they're, what's going on? And all of a sudden they hear a gunshot from upstairs. They run upstairs, they find him dead in the bathroom, committed suicide. There were no financial troubles. There was no weird secret affairs. There was absolutely nothing. He just had a psychotic break one day and committed suicide. Maybe it was him. Nobody was quite sure what was in the house and what was going on. But then, one day, one of the employees, they found a picture of Mrs. Stady. And they thought, well, maybe they just want to be recognized. Maybe this was her house. Everybody remembers Bill, but nobody remembers her. And honestly, nobody really remembers Bill anymore. Well, maybe she's mad. Maybe if it's her. So they get a printout of this picture. They blow it up. And actually, this is a set of two. There's another one where she's actually looking stoically out the window. And it's those two pictures back to back. And they hung it in one of the offices. And when they did, all the activity stopped. There's still stories that some things happen out there, but for the most part, it's all stopped. Did they just want to be remembered? Was it Elizabeth Stady and she just wanted to, hey, recognize me? Nobody knows. But as far as the QC mansions go, it is one of the most hidden mansions that you can get into. They were opening it up before COVID, and you could get in there at least once a year and take tours. And really cool place. Maybe they'll get back to that point. Maybe after hours, Elizabeth and Oscar are still wandering around. And if you drive by the bluff one night, maybe if you look up, maybe you'll see them looking out at you. Who knows? And then there's this. Exciting, huh? The most fun for historians off the beaten path, stuff that no longer exists, Used to be, this was 723 Main Street in Davenport, right down the street from Central High School. You could, within line of sight, you could stand on the bluff and look right up at it. Palmer is right back there. If you see that white thing back there, that's Palmer, part of Palmer. Used to be this, the Pi Kappa Chi fraternity. Founded in 1969, they bought the house, they wanted a place for their members to live on campus. It was a chiropractic fraternity. They wanted to live there, they wanted to have someplace close. So they're like, okay, cool. So they moved in there, and it had people living from the basement all the way up to the attic space up there. And not too long after they moved in, stuff started to happen. Odd things. One person was in the basement, and he's doing whatever he's doing, and he hears the front door upstairs, hears it open, and hears footsteps clearly walk across the floor, and then stop. Now he's thinking it's the paper boys, the mailman, it's somebody. And it's like, well, maybe they're looking around for somebody. So he jogs up the stairs, and he comes out, there's nobody there. The front door's closed. So he's like, they wander around the house. So he goes, he takes a quick look around, nobody's there. This is not an isolated incident. Several of the fraternity brothers who were living at the house, and even a few that weren't living there, heard the same thing. And it always happened about the same thing. It was, they would hear the front door open, they would hear somebody walk across the floor. Sometimes it would come upstairs. One time, a fraternity brother who lived in the attic clearly heard someone walk all the way upstairs to the second floor, and he heard somebody go into the bathroom and use the bathroom. He'd hear the faucet turn on and off. Now, he was in the house by himself at the time. He figured somebody came home. The wonderful thing about living with 6 or 7 other people, somebody's always wrong. So he comes in, he kind of leans out, nobody's there. Everything's off. No lights, nobody in the bathroom, nobody in the house. But he clearly heard footsteps going, someone moving around the house. Another person, other people heard footsteps come in the front door and then walk in the kitchen, and they heard cupboard doors opening and closing on their own. Like somebody's looking around for something, looking for something to eat. Once again, nobody's there. Nobody else in the house. Sometimes the footsteps were light, like, oh, I'm happy. And other times they were heavy, like somebody's all mad, you know? Like they just found those crows over there in central Iowa, and rather the crows found them, and they're all mad, and they come stomping across the floor and stomping up the stairs. One person said he was laying in his bed one night, and he's studying, and he hears something, and he knows he's in the house by himself. He hears somebody walk across the floor, very deliberately, and then downstairs, then up the stairs, and they pause outside of his bedroom door. And he's like, it's just, something's not right. He's just all tense. I don't like this. And so he just turned his back to the wall, and he just stayed there, and he hears his bedroom door open. And then he hears footsteps very clearly walk across the floor and stop right in front of his bed. And he's just there, and he can feel it, and he feels like somebody's standing behind him. He's just, I just want to go away, but I'm not turning around, there's no way. And finally, it kind of eases up, and he turns around, nobody's there, his door is closed, nothing. Once again, no one in the house. Another person had a little different thing. He's in his bedroom in the middle of the night, and something woke him up, and he feels somebody grab him by the neck and start choking him. And just as he is about to pass out, it just suddenly lets up and disappears. Had no idea what it was, but he slept downstairs with the lights on the rest of the night. He was dead. Another instance, there were French doors on the second floor. There's a balcony out back, and there were these French doors, and a couple guys sitting up there talking and having a good time, and the doors just open up. There's no wind, so that didn't happen. So what's going on? So they go up, they close them. They go back to talking. They open again. Okay, and they had made sure, okay, well maybe we didn't get enough. They made sure it's secured and it's good. So, third time, happens again, it opens up. Okay, that's not right. So they had a big chiropractic adjustment table. And so they take it in between the two and they move them up. door. And they put it there. A little while later, the doors open and push the table across the floor as they open, like someone's pushing against it. They were gone. So the brothers were a little confused, and much like the people at the Bettendorf mansion did, they decided, we're going to find out what happened. Now, in their research, they found that the house was built in the 1930s, and it was lived in almost from the very beginning by a local doctor named William Stokes. William Stokes was a big doctor in the area. He actually worked at the old St. Luke's right down the hill. And he was primarily there, but he was part of the Scott County Medical Association. He was big at St. Luke's. He was on their staff forever. He actually ran for Davenport mayor twice, failed twice. But when he got into his later years, he was wheelchair bound. And so he had buzzers put throughout the house, upstairs, downstairs, bedrooms, anywhere he could get to, where it would, if he had trouble, he could just hit a buzzer. Sometimes those buzzers would go off on their own, like somebody was calling for assistance. They couldn't figure that one out. Maybe it was them. Maybe it was him still being back at his house. A psychic from Chicago came in. It was part of a big publicity stunt later on. They wanted to come in and do a big investigation, and she was there with the fraternity brothers, and she said, there's a doctor here, and he's very unhappy with you guys. And he doesn't believe in chiropractic, and he's mad that you're living in his house. Well, back then, even in the modern day, even though chiropractic is so much more accepted, back then, there were a lot of members of the medical community that were very much against chiropractic. And the further back you go towards the inception of chiropractic, the worse that animosity became. Well, he was from the early days, and he might have had a lot of animosity towards chiropractors. There's no evidence of that or records or anything like him coming out and saying that. But still, the house was torn down as part of the Palmer College beautification project. They bought a bunch of stuff down there and tore it out and made a lot of green space. And honestly, it looked really nice down there. I hate to say it, because some of them were cool houses, but it was really cool. It looks really super nice down there now. But that was the haunted fraternity. And you can go up there. It's right there. I always remembered it because those letters in the front, you can barely make them out, those were blue. And I remember, oh, that was the house with the blue letters. Matter of fact, when I first heard this story, it's like, oh, I know that house, and that's how I knew it. And it's there. The space is still there. I think they even tore out the stairs now, so you can't even get up there. But as you come up about halfway up the hill, it's there. And maybe, whatever used to walk the stairs is still there. We don't know. Maybe you can't hear it because there's no floor to walk across. There's no stairs to stomp up. But maybe if you go out there, it's a nice field if you go out there on a nice sunny day. More like last week instead of today, I would recommend. However, if you go out there, maybe you can still feel something. The unexplained is everywhere, and there's all kinds of stories everywhere. There's the woods, there's the things that are no longer there, there's the hidden mansions. All you got to do is keep an open mind and know where to look. Thank you for having me out tonight. I really appreciate your time. I'm glad somebody showed up. Now, I know that there's questions, so go ahead, fire away.
Charles Dickens' son.
Yes, he was buried out there.
Yes.
Yep.
Are there any phantom ideas?
No. None. None associated with Charles Dickens' son.
Is his name Jeffrey Francis?
It's something like that. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Third son. Okay.
Yep, he's out there.
He disowned him because he moved to the United States.
Charles Dickens famously did not have very good familial relations. He wasn't very close to his sons. He wasn't really close to any members of his family at the end. And he was more or less off on his own. And his son had served that particular son had actually served in India and other places abroad. Then he fell in hard times. I want to say he had actually done a big bout with alcoholism, and he had gotten himself clean, and in order to make money, he was going to go on the lyceum circuit, the lecture circuit around, and talk about his experiences in India. and he passed away in Moline, and so they just buried him there. And then later on, there was a group that came together and they got enough money together for his headstone and put I believe he has 2 headstones up there. There was the original one, which isn't so fancy, and then the new one that's a lot cooler and more respectful, I guess.
The Canadian Royal Mount and
Yes.
police, he was part, they considered it to be his best job he ever had, unless they had a shoot him, I want to say 94.
Yep,
And
there you
that's
go.
they have the big memorial there. So.
Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about that dark angel at the grave, there's also one in Iowa City. I don't know if you know about that one.
Yes,
Cemetery.
Oakland Cemetery.
And supposedly, they call it the Black Angel, and supposedly if you go up and touch it, then you're gonna die.
Yes.
I don't know what the time frame is, but